Most of the guys, think that thumbnails are just, designs that need to be pretty. A lot more than that, which I had to learn the hard way. Basically, thumbnails are, let's say, they're meaning containers. They are supposed to be the first link between the viewer and your video. So they need to show what's happening in the video, and they need to, make it interesting so the viewer actually wants to click on it. So it's basically grabbing your video and making it as appealing as possible in just one picture. Now, there's a ton of ways to do that.
I love the idea of a meaning container, because that to me is like really deep, even though it's simple, but it really is. It's like, I'm going to give an example. I'm going to make myself sound old here. Dude, I used to love the old movie posters. You'd go to the theater, and before a new movie came out, you'd see the poster for the stuff that was coming out. And there was a guy named Drew Struzan, I can't remember his name, but he did everything. He did the Indiana Jones poster, the Star Wars posters. He did all of those things. And he put all of this stuff in there. There was so much that was contained, but you could see it and go, wow, when I look at that, I know what that movie's about. Even before I go and watch anything, even more so than a trailer. You see the image and you go, wow, I've got what's happening here. Most creators think thumbnails are all about design, but what is it that they're actually trying to do? Well, welcome everybody back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. This is our round 2. We tried to talk yesterday, but the internet said, fuck you guys. So we're back today trying to do it again in a better way. Can you tell people who you are and what you do?
All right, I'm Milan. I've been a thumbnail strategist for the last 2.5 years. I worked mostly in the health niche with some of the biggest creators, Paul Saladino, Dave Asprey, and Dr. Karen. And
That's awesome,
basically
man.
focusing on thumbnails, titles, and getting into idealization too recently.
How did you start down this path? What was it that made you say, hey, this is what I want to be doing and this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I've been messing with Photoshop for a long time. And then my friend actually started video editing, and he was really successful at it. And I was like, okay, let's try something out. And basically just got into thumbnails, started doing just the designs at first, and evolved from there basically.
That's awesome, man. Well, it leads to my question, what does make a great thumbnail, man? How I want a thumbnail that actually does something. Where do I go with that?
Yeah, I mean, most of the guys, think that thumbnails are just, designs that need to be pretty, but there's a lot more than that, which I had to learn the hard way. So basically thumbnails are, let's say, they're meaning containers. They are supposed to be the first link between the viewer and your video. So they need to show what's happening in the video, and they need to, make it interesting so the viewer actually wants to click on it. So it's basically grabbing your video and making it as appealing as possible in just one picture. Now, there's a ton of ways to do that.
I love that. I love the idea of a meaning container, because that to me is really deep, even though it's simple, but it really is. It's I'm going to give an example. I'm going to make myself sound old here, but dude, I used to love the old movie posters. You go to the theater, and before a new movie came out, you'd see the poster for the stuff that was coming out. And there was a guy named Drew Struzan, I can't remember his name, but he did everything. He did the Indiana Jones poster, the Star Wars posters. He did all of those things. And he put all of this stuff in there. There was so much that was contained, but you could see it and go, wow, when I look at that, I know what that movie's about. Even before I go and watch anything, even more so than a trailer. You see the image and you go, wow, I've got what's happening here. And
Totally.
it leads to my next question, because most creators think thumbnails are all about design, but what is it that they're actually trying to do?
Okay, the thumbnails are supposed to do a few things. Primarily, they're supposed to stand out between the competition, the homepage. When there's 15 thumbnails on the homepage, yours needs to stand out so the viewer actually sees it. Another thing is, it needs to be interesting. It needs to create a curiosity gap. There's a lot of, those thumbnails that is how to make, $1 million a month. That is a curiosity gap, for some audiences, It needs to raise a question. Now, the title is there to deepen that curiosity gap or that question, you know? And it's there to, if the thumbnail is, all right, it's a creator with, a number of how he transformed his life, let's say, before and after. The title needs to be something along the lines, how I transform my life in a year, So it deepens that question from the thumbnail.
And I love the idea of the curiosity gap too. It's like if I see like a water balloon that's right here in front of someone's face, like my
Yeah.
brain is going to try to go, well, dude, what's happening next? I'm pretty sure that dude's going to get really wet in a second. But you want to
Yeah.
see it, you want to see to confirm or deny what's going to happen, and I love that you got to get them curious. Otherwise, it's not gonna go anywhere, And,
Yeah, that's the main thing about the whole packaging. It needs to be intriguing, it needs to raise a question, and the video needs to answer that question. That's the whole deal between, the video and the actual packaging before it.
well, one of the things too is like, what separates a thumbnail that gets ignored from one that earns the click? How you get 2 different thumbnails. What's the thing that actually makes people go, "Well, shit, I'm gonna click on that"?
Totally. And yeah, there's a lot of YouTubers that focus too much on the competition in their niche, Somebody starts, uh, let's say a health channel. He's a doctor and he wants to start a health channel. There's a ton of doctors, and there's like 1,000,001 thumbnail on the topic of, let's say, heart disease or, anything like that. Hair, regrowth. But your thumbnail needs to take an idea, an inspiration from the thumbnails in your niche and make it better. You need to take it one step above so you actually stick out against, the competition and actually stick out on the homepage.
I love that, because it's like, I love the idea of like, you gotta stick out because people have options. Like there
Yeah.
are so many options that people have. And like what you're, I saw this one clip the other day that was of old dating videos from somewhere. And it was people trying to introduce themselves. And God, it was painful to watch. And it was like from the 80s or something. Someone was like, my name is Jimmy John, and I like to work on my trucks 18 hours a day. If you want to marry me, you better like trucks too. And I was like, God damn, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was like, did Jimmy John ever find love? I really want to know. Did Jimmy
Yeah.
John find love? But I hope that he did, man. But one of the things too, when you look at those old dating videos, it's like sometimes they were fails, and you wonder what was it in the packaging. Or you go back to the old high school photos. I mean, you're younger than me, but my old high school photos, they were
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah,
And
definitely.
grade school photos were even worse. 80s, man, they had a photo here and they had another. You were down here and they had another version of you up here going like this. It was terrifying. It was like this dual photo. I'll have to send that to you. And for people that don't know, I'm going to put that in the podcast. You'll see it right there. But like the idea was, are you selling this thing? Like, because you got to get
Yeah.
that I don't know, that secret sauce,
Yeah, totally. And a similar idea behind this also is, with Facebook ads, with image ads, you
Yeah.
also have, the click-through rate, and you also need the curiosity gap. And it's all basic behind that curiosity gap and sticking out against your competition. Those two things are the primary objective for everyone.
It is, and it's like one of the things too, and this is where my question though, is it all about click-through or are people respecting the art as well? Because like for me, with my
Oh,
team, when
yeah.
we're making a thumbnail for my daughter's YouTube especially, I want that shit to look good. And even though like,
Yeah.
well, this one didn't perform as well, but I was like, but it looks better. Is art like more important or is it all about click-through, at the end of the day? What do you think?
Like quality of the design, definitely, and the art and the actual, prettiness of it definitely has an impact. you know? And it's not as important, as making it interesting and appealing and, everything else. But design definitely has that something when you see it on the homepage, if the thumbnail is high quality and made, properly, you get a sense of, okay, this video will be good. This is something, educational. This will be entertaining. It's just you get the sense of quality from the thumbnail, if you're getting what I want to say there.
It is, man. I mean, I sorry. My wife today, all right, so we have some dogs, and one of our dogs is smaller, so she can't drink out of the water bowl for the big dog. And so I said, we gotta think about something because our poor little dog is gonna like just be so thirsty all the time
Yeah,
because she can't reach the
wrong.
water bowl.
Yeah.
So we were looking at different things, and my wife went online and bought this product. And it came today, it was a piece of shit. And it's just like, we opened it up, she's like,
It
"It might be
happens.
good," but
Totally. Yeah.
we both looked at it and we were like, "What the hell is that thing, man? That's just ridiculousness right now. It's not that nice." And she was like, "Yeah, this is horrible." And we were trying to figure out what it was, but like on the page, it looked so much better, but when the product came, it was horrible. But one of the things is you could look at it when she opened the box, and I just was like, "I know that's cheap." She's like, "Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's gonna be nice when we put it together." I was like, "No, I know that's cheap. You could just see it because there was something about it versus you get something that's higher quality, and I don't know what that thing is, but you can tell that there's quality in it." And I feel the same when I look at a good thumbnail. When I see a thumbnail that really hits, it has this thing. I don't know how to put
Yeah,
my
it
finger on
does.
it,
It
but it's
does. I
there.
mean, you basically got clickbaited, just not on YouTube with that dog bowl. But yeah, I
You
agree.
got to.
Yeah. Yeah,
I agree, man. I think clickbait is a powerful thing. But I want to ask this: How much do you th-
definitely.
how much do you think a video's success is determined before someone even presses record? How much do you think that thumbnail is determining the success of the video?
I wouldn't give all of the, props to the thumbnail. I would count the title there as well. But it's so much more than most people think, because you can even see, if you go on any channel, you can see the video that's packaged better. It didn't get, a bit more views, or, 2 times more views. If your video is drastically better in packaging, it can get, 20 times more views, 50 times more views. So it's really really impactful on the, how your video does. It's just a small change. Yeah, a small change can be the difference between, 100 views and, 10,000 views.
Oh man, I love that. There was a couple years ago, it was on what was it on? Craigslist. It was this description of this car. I'm trying to see if I can find it. It was a couple years ago. I'll have to search for it later, but like it was the most horrible description of a car ever. Like this guy described this car. He's like, "All right, so this is what this car has been through." He's like, "This shit ain't pretty, but this is what it's
Yeah.
done." Like, and he just described this cool story. And what was amazing was that the story got all of this, it went viral a long time ago. And like it got viral because it was so descriptive, it was so funny. And like the guy was like, people were offering, the guy wanted like 3 grand for the car. People were offering him, I think, like 15K or something, man. They were
Yeah.
just like, everyone wanted that car. And he was like, "Oh man, there's so much demand," because he knew how to package it. It was clickbait as well. It was like the earliest clickbait that he just had this crazy story that got people engaged, but the clickbait was to call him, to engage him, to email him. But it was powerful to me because I saw early on in that like the power that a great image can have, that a great story can have. And I think that like the power of a thumbnail is, can you tell a story in an image? Can you take one snapshot and put the elements together that creates a story?
Yeah, and definitely there's a ton of formats of thumbnails. And some of the thumbnails are just, it's being you in action, you know. There's a lot of formats on thumbnails, and there's particularly one format if you're doing something crazy in the video, skydiving, or, jumping off something, or, running versus Usain Bolt. You can just put a picture of you, and then, let's say, a great soccer player or a great tennis player, and the audience will know who that is, you know? If it's in action, if you're fighting against someone, if you're playing against someone, you get the sense of what the video is about just from the thumbnail, and that's a big thing in thumbnails also.
I love that, man. When you're sitting there, when you look at a struggling channel, and what's the first pattern that you usually spot? You see a channel and they're just not doing well. What is the thing that you go, we need to, this is something they've got to fix?
I mean, I'm going to be repeating myself like 10 times again, but truly, like, when most YouTubers know they need an editor, most YouTubers know they need a good video, a good intro, but not a lot of YouTubers actually put their focus on the titles and thumbnails. So actually, a big percentage of struggling channels are struggling just because of that. Maybe their competition or just YouTube has evolved in that way that, everybody has perfect titles, perfect thumbnails, and they just cannot stand out against them. Yeah, I'm basically checking, okay, how much effort are you putting into the ideas? How much effort are you putting into the actual packaging? Are you doing just one thumbnail or maybe two thumbnails, three thumbnails? How many titles are you experimenting? And yeah, that's like the first thing I do.
It's interesting. I used to work in Hollywood with big movies. And one of the things that was wild about that, the department that always gets shit on by everyone else was the sound
What is
department.
it?
Like,
Really?
it was so, oh, dude, it's crazy. Like, they're filming and the camera team gets all this time, like, just filming all this stuff. And the sound's like, hey, can we get a couple minutes here just for room tone? And everyone's looking at them like, taking all this time. They're like, we're just trying to,
Yeah.
like, make this good quality. It feels so bad for the guys all the time. But one of the things that's like, but then when you get into post and suddenly like everyone's like, why is the sound so bad? Well, because you didn't really think about that when you were recording. You didn't give it time. And like that's the thing too, is like I find when I have clients come to me and they're like, we're creating videos for them, we're like, great, and we edit this great video. And I said, what are you gonna do for the thumbnail? They're like, well, I'm gonna have my son do it on Canva. And I was just like, oh, oh God.
Yeah.
Well, have fun with that. I
Yeah.
don't know how that's gonna go. But like one of the things that I was blown away by was like the true I was watching this video about like really it was on LinkedIn, and this kid that was a really good thumbnail artist was doing a video like analyzing the difference in thumbnails. And I was just like, the psychology going into it, the colors, there's so much
Yeah.
thought into the little things. What's the biggest mistake creators make with titles and thumbnails? What's the biggest thing that they're messing up?
There's a lot of rules for everything. As you said, you can go crazy in everything. The faces, the emotion added to the thumbnail, then the colors. Each color has an emotion link to it. You know, a lot of YouTubers, I would say they just don't put enough effort in it because there's really, okay, you need a thumbnail, a picture. It's, a picture at the end of the day, but there's so much behind it that links to the human brain, to the human psychology that just creators just do not go into that at all. And there's also the title. It's the same thing with the title. It's like a few words, but you can just rearrange that, let's say, 7 words in so many different ways that can make it so much more appealing and so much more curiosity, inducing. And that's just a skill, and you need to practice that. You need to see what bigger YouTubers do. You need to see what your audience likes, see what works, see what doesn't, and then just double down on what works.
Oh, it's interesting too because I think that people want results right away. But I love this is
Yeah,
one of the reasons I love that YouTube now has A/B testing built in because
yeah,
like sometimes you got to test to see what works better. You got to try to,
yeah,
to to put things out there because I think that I think people are scared of failing. People are scared of making mistakes. And when you invest a lot of time and money and energy into a video, you don't want to see something hold it back. But at the same time, I think people have to realize that like when you grow, when you create, there is a process to understanding your audience, to learning what works, and even more importantly, learning what doesn't work. And
yeah.
sometimes learning what doesn't work is like your superpower. You get to sit there and go, oh, well, shit. All right, now that I know it doesn't work, let's figure out what does, you know?
Yeah, and you can really go in depth in that. I started working with a doctor a few months back. It's a family physician, you know, he works primarily older people watch him. And the big thing for him is thumbnails do not need to be complicated at all, but the
No.
text on the thumbnail needs to be extremely, extremely big, and it needs to be similar to the title. And we figured out, okay, your audience average age is 65 plus. They probably cannot see the title very well. And the text on the thumbnail is actually what they read first. And they will go off the text of the thumbnail straight into entering the video.
See, that's fascinating. That's fascinating as hell to me, man. Because, like, I look at thumbnails and I don't think about all that. Like, I don't like, but you have to. You have to. It's like, one of the things it was interesting for me. I remember a couple years ago, I had this car, and it was really great. I love that car until one day it didn't start, and I just was like, "What the hell? My car's not starting." And my friend was a mechanic, and he's like, "Well, you need a new starter. I know this sound. Your starter died." And so I was like, "What's a starter?" And he's like, "All right, well, it's this little thing that goes on the bottom. It's a little electrical motor that turns the engine and it gets the car to
Yeah.
turn on." And so I was like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know that existed." And so he's like, "All right, we're gonna go get one." And we went down and he took me to the wrecking yard and I pulled one off. I put it into my car. It was one of the most like cool things I've ever done. It was a lot of fun. But I didn't realize that something so small could be so important to the functioning of a vehicle. And when you're creating this stuff, a title feels like an afterthought for so many people. What do we post? How do we label this? What is the thumbnail? Thumbnail, okay. Do I have small words? I remember one of my wife's editors was creating a thumbnail and she kept doing all these thumbnails that had these really soft, like letters that were like really flowy. And I was like, I can't read that shit. I said, if I can't read it, like, I don't know how anyone else is going to read it. Like, you can't read it. And she's like, well, what should we do? I said, make it bold. And she's like, "But it's not so pretty." And I was like, "Well, right now, people are gonna skip the damn song because they don't even know what it is." But I wanna ask this too, because there's such a balance, you know? But how do you create curiosity, like you said before, that curiosity gap, without being just clickbait, you know?
It really does not have to be clickbait. For example, a lot of YouTubers know the thumbnail format is before and after, you know? And there's really, if you put, as Mr. Beast and Patty Galloway said, if it's a good video idea, if you put crazy effort in it, clickbait is an afterthought. There are
Mhm.
videos that just, I, I took down like 50 pounds in 3 months. You don't need clickbait for that. The thumbnail is going to
Yeah.
do all the work there. But most YouTubers do not go, that into, most creators don't go to that step, let's say. But you can just word the video and the thumbnail. Okay, so let's say the title of the video is "The Best Food for Losing Fat." There's a ton of videos about that topic. And you can create that food. You don't even need to show that food. You need to package it around, okay, it's hidden. Or you can
Mm.
package it around losing fat. That's not clickbait if it's losing fat, because clickbait would be, I don't know how to word it, but let's say I lost 10 pounds and then in the thumbnail, she has a six pack. But you can just, you know, make it around the topic that people will see that, okay, she didn't lose actually that. The video is actually about food. It shows a transformation thumbnail that could be possible for someone if they implemented
Yeah.
that food into their diet. So it's basically looking at different angles of attack, let's say, which you can take inspiration from and adapt it to your video.
Yeah. Well, one of the things too is like I was watching this great masterclass but from Kim Kardashian, and she was talking about like, yeah, what you're trying to do is monetize attention. You're trying to figure out how to grab attention, and there's a lot of ways to do it. But at the end of the day, um, are you trying to find a way to provide some type of story that has either an emotional payoff or value? Because those are two different ways to do it. And like, if you go in there and you can kind of try to find a way to provide value, you're more likely to get people to stick around, you know? Like, there's much more likelihood that people are gonna like, "Hey, what is this?" And, especially if you're doing, like, I think about, like, a Mr. Beast type video. I don't know if it's the value or it's just the interesting payoff of the emotional, like, happiness that people get. But,
Yeah.
if someone's like, a video on heart disease, well, if you have a thumbnail that actually goes, "Oh, wow, that I know from seeing that thumbnail it's gonna provide value to me." Um this is where it leads to my next question of like, if someone's creating these thumbnails and if someone only improved one skill this year to grow their channel, should it be the storytelling or the packaging? What do you think is more important? I mean, obviously
Mm.
both are important, but what do you
Both
think
are,
you would
yeah.
focus on?
I never gotten deep in storytelling. I'm gonna be completely honest. Uh,
Yeah.
it's it revolves around retention, right? And I would say more people have that nailed down and are better at that than the actual packaging. And again, your thumbnail needs to complement the video and the title. So if your thumbnail is completely, let's say, as you said before, clickbait, or it's just not related to the video, people are going to enter in no matter how good your storytelling is. If the thumbnail is bad, not related, or clickbait, people are not going to watch something they didn't click for. So I would still focus on packaging because it's lacking behind, definitely behind. I would say
I'm gonna show you
storytelling.
something. I I got my own full battery media hats made, and it's trucker hat. I got them made in 2 colors, and my friends are like, "Why are you getting hats made?" I'm like, "Because they're freaking awesome,
Yeah.
and I like wearing them. I like repping my stuff." But it was like, I remember my friend Bao. Bao, I'm gonna shout out to Bao. Bao is probably one of the best branding people I know. Now, Bao had a band named Ming and Ping. Ming and Ping was an interesting concept where he played 2 characters in the band. One of them was pre-recorded, him, and one of them was live. So he would do these
Yeah.
shows
Yeah.
with, like, his twin, but it was both him, and one of it was, like, singing on a track, and one of it was singing live, and it was a very creative show. Now, I'm gonna say something here that is super horrible to Bao. I don't think Bao can sing for shit. He's not a great vocalist. He's a great songwriter. His music was really good, but what was amazing was that he was amazing at packaging. And so he had Ming and Ping
Yeah.
shirts, there was Ming and Ping dolls, he had Ming and Ping bags, Ming and Ping everything. And like people that were his fans were ravenous about everything that was included in the package. And the package was what kept people around. Like, I remember going to all of these other cities, and his band had this underground following, and we would see Ming and Ping gear everywhere, like, at the height of his band. And it was wild because I was like, "Bow, who's getting this made?" He's like, "I'm making most of this stuff myself, man." And it was pretty wild, but he was so dedicated to the packaging that it helped his success, you know? It was wild like that.
I just wanted to say, yeah, merge is just the move.
Right? How can people have better packaging? What are some of the elements that you think makes a better packaging besides just thumbnails? What are some elements of packaging that you think everyone should be doing?
Yeah, definitely. Like packaging. First of all, we can go over the YouTube banner, the YouTube profile picture. Those are not as important. They still need to be high quality, good. The banner needs to show what you do on the channel. It needs to be interesting. It needs to maybe have some links to your socials. But that's the end of that. Not much psychology in those. But basically, one thing I would always recommend, use the A/B testing tool. Even if it's a small change, even if it's just 2 titles, always use the A/B tester and write down how everything performed. Try to find patterns. There's always a pattern. You will find a winning concept eventually that you can reuse a couple of times that will guarantee you basically good videos if you stick with it.
I love that. It's I think that not I know so many like smaller YouTubers that sit there and I've heard them say to me, I think the A/B testing tool is for bigger channels. And I said, no,
Oh,
everyone can benefit from that. Like get out and
yeah.
play with it and use it because A/B testing is such an important part of business, and it just helps you see, like, what's working better. And maybe this is one of the things that I was blown away by is that stuff that I thought was unimportant or people didn't like was actually performing better. And that was one of the beauties of A/B testing is that I realized that my judgment was kinda holding stuff back and that I needed to kind of approach things from a different perspective and give fans and people options, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's basically there is some truth to A/B testing is for bigger channels. You know, if a creator is on the smaller side, he needs to make big variations in the titles and the thumbnails because small things, just changing like the color of a shirt or something like that, it's maybe you maybe gain a few percentage, like a 1 to 2% better click-through rate, but it's not anything substantial. Creators with tens of millions and millions of views, that's like 5% change in video can be the difference, between thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands even of views. But if you are a small creator, the bigger the variation, it will be better for testing and knowledge long term.
Mm. Well, and how do you test thumbnails and titles without destroying your momentum, you know? Because if you're changing things too much, can it really throw you off? Or you just have to understand that you win some, you lose some?
No, definitely. I had a couple of clients that love to change their thumbnails every half an hour, but no, that's not the move. Do you have tools currently for both the thumbnails and titles? But the thing first is, I would test thumbnails first. So it would be 2 to 3 thumbnail variations that are close to completely different. So one approach could be positive, one approach could be negative, and one approach could be just curiosity, just in raw intrigue. You see which thumbnail did the best. After that, you do 3 titles, 3 completely different titles. You grab the best from that. And all of those need to be spaced out, like 12 to 24 hours, let's say. And that's how you get the winning video. If the video is going crazy well, you can micro optimize it. So you can try the changing shirt or changing the emotion of the face or changing the background of the thumbnail from the, of course, winning one from the first batch. But yeah, that's how you do A/B testing the right way.
I love that, man. And at what point does but I mean, like, with you doing this, at what point does brand consistency matter than pure click through it? Because, like you said, like smaller channels can get away with big variations, but like
Yeah.
when you get to be a larger channel, do you have to really? Well, this is our look, this is our style, or do you think that's a danger that maybe even big channels should be changing it up more often? You know?
I would say it is a danger because a lot of creators, especially businesses that get into YouTube, are so into that. We need to have this color and this layout and this lighting and everything like the same. But you can try it out a few times, but the audience, the regular guy who watches those videos, who is the biggest part of the algorithm, is going to get tired. Or maybe it's just too bland for him. So really YouTube is a platform that needs testing. To actually win in it, you need to test a lot of things. But at the end of the day, Callaway is one creator that does branding perfectly. He always has a similar background. He always wears the same like hat in the thumbnail. And he always has his face in the thumbnail. Those are all branding elements. Your face is the branding. The clothes you wear, the color of them is the branding. The font you use is the branding. You don't need to always stick to the same colors, same fonts, same layout. That just hurts the variety and that hurts the testing.
I love that. I love the idea of like people being willing to change it up, because I feel like people get so stuck in doing the same thing again and again and again. Because it's like I find myself I have to be really careful, because I like am the type of guy that this is horrible. Like for the longest time, I would eat the same food at like all the time. Like, you go to a restaurant and like, "Oh, we've got 45 different dishes," and I'm like, "I'm getting that one." Why? "Oh, it's because what I had last week." And the danger with content is that can bury you because, you gotta figure out what is something that, try new things because maybe you're doing the same thing and that thing is not what the algorithm is rewarding at that time. And you gotta play with it. And not that it's all about making the algorithm happy, but I mean, if you want to be making it ahead in content, you gotta figure out what's being promoted and what's kind of trending right there. Like, let's be real. But I want to ask you this, like, because if you were starting from zero today, you're helping a creator start at 0. What would your thumbnail and title strategy look like for the first 30 days? Where are you taking people?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, quite recently with that doctor I was talking about for the older audiences, I had that he had around 50K subscribers and he didn't post for like 2 to 3 months. Before that, he had a team with, I would say, pretty bad packaging in general. We I got a piece of paper and a pen, and I've gone basically across the whole niche and tried to search for the person that's the closest to him. Okay, that's the person who we need to look up to. We're not going to steal from them. We're going to take bits and pieces from their content that worked. We are going to rearrange them and make something new from them. Then I've gone into similar niches. So if it's a doctor that focuses on family physician, focuses on older folks, and in general around the health of your heart, I will go to maybe someone who focuses on nutrition or maybe someone who focuses on exercise.
Yep.
And you can take ideas, thumbnails, title formats, you can take inspiration from all of that and make something new that has the bits and pieces proven to work in other channels. And you can check him out on YouTube, everyone. It's Dr. Mitch Rice. He currently has 90, I think 5K subscribers, something like that. He's closing on 100K. But yeah, we had a couple of videos pass 1 million views for him. And yeah, it's been amazing. Actually, we figured out a format for thumbnails that just works. So we're basically abusing that currently.
That's awesome, man. But yeah, I think that once you figure it out, it's like you have that thing that you can lean on. And it's like I think that people enjoy that. I know that like you see that with restaurants that sometimes early on in the restaurant, they got to figure out what their menu is. You got to figure out what foods work. But then once the audience, like the people coming to the restaurant go, dude, the hot dogs here are so good. Well, maybe they serve burgers too, but the hot dogs start pulling people in. And, when they get bigger and they start doing more, certainly you can sell other products. But once those hot dogs are good, man, that's a great way to kind of get people on board. And I think that like that's one
Yeah.
of the things for me that a thumbnail to me is like and a title. They're the way to kind of bridge a gap because think about it this way. You're meeting a stranger. The person in front of you is a complete stranger and you have to sit there and tell them, "I want you to give 10 minutes, 15 minutes of your time to me." And you have to prove to them that you're worth it. And I think the thumbnail is this great like place to show here is the value that I will provide you. And for heart issues, the three things that you can do to help like live an extra 25 years. Dude, I would watch that video in a heartbeat. No pun on heartbeat,
Yeah.
but I would watch that video right away because it's going to have value. So, but how do you show that in the thumbnail?
Yeah, as I said, the big thing for that channel was actual text and showing the title. So it's just the title says, as you said it, like 3 things that can improve heart health. You need to have something extremely similar but shorter version of that in the thumbnail. And then you can have the doctor there and then maybe a person, measuring their blood pressure and yeah, things like that. You just need, there's not a crazy way to portray that. A person with 70 years old won't click on a doctor who's, dying in a thumbnail, like Mr. Beast in a coffin.
Right.
But you need to
Right?
portray, they need to relate to it. Having a doctor in his suit, with the stethoscope around his neck, looking serious, looking clean, with a nice haircut, that to them gives them a sense of branding, gives them a sense of security, it gives them a sense of, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He can help me with this. So that's a big branding thing for him that we did.
If someone wanted to learn more about the work that you're doing, where can they go and look for you?
Yeah, I have a Twitter. It's at DSND, and yeah, that's basically where I hang out the most. Also have a LinkedIn, that's Milan Bozic, and yeah, that's it.